The sun was setting behind the ridges, painting the wide prairie in shades of dark orange. Wind chased dry dust along the road, and somewhere far away a coyote howled at the fading light. The night promised to be uneasy, restless. John Ross, a weathered rancher with a restless heart, often chose such evenings to ride away from the ranch, checking the cattle, hunting for wolves, or just escaping the kind of silence that weighed heavier than a drunkard's shout in a saloon. That was his way of coping. But that evening, something unusual caught his eye. By the old well, a shadowy figure knelt on the ground. A woman. She wasn't from around here, that much was clear. In her hands she clutched something wrapped in a ragged piece of cloth, moving quickly as if trying to hide it before anyone noticed. John slowed his horse, eyes narrowing. As he approached, the mare snorted, and the woman spun around, startled. The moonlight revealed her face, pale, tense, and much younger than he expected. But what struck him most was the fear blazing in her eyes. Not just fear of being discovered, fear of losing what she held. "Who are you?" John's voice was sharp, his hand instinctively resting on the grip of his revolver. "And what are you hiding?" The woman said nothing, only pressed the bundle closer to her chest. "It's none of your business," she whispered at last. "Go. Leave me." There was no threat in her tone, no challenge, only a plea. But to John, such words were like a spark on dry wood. He hated boundaries, hated being told what he couldn't do. "Everything on this land is my business," he growled, sliding off the saddle. His boots crunched against the dirt as he stepped forward. "Especially when a stranger's crawling around my well." She recoiled a step, clutching the cloth tighter. A gust of wind swept a strand of hair from her face, and John saw the truth. She was far too young to be wandering the prairie alone. "Please," her voice was quieter than the rustle of grass. "Don't touch it. Don't take it off." The word stuck in his mind. A warning, or a secret. To John, it sounded like a dare. Suspicion stirred in his chest. Could be a weapon under there. Could be stolen goods. Gold. Or something far worse. Out here in the Wild West, nothing ever happened without reason. John took another step closer. The air between them grew heavy. The woman's knuckles turned white as she clung to the cloth, her whole body trembling. "You'll either tell me what's under there," his voice dropped to a cold whisper, "or I'll find out myself." At that very moment, lightning tore across the horizon, splitting the darkening sky. A storm was rolling in, but the real storm was already here, rising in the silence between a desperate girl and a stubborn rancher by the lonely well. The wind grew sharper as the storm crawled closer, dragging the horizon into darkness. The prairie grass bent under sudden gusts, whispering like restless spirits. John Ross stood firm, boots planted in the dirt, staring down the stranger. The young woman's hands trembled as she pressed the rag-wrapped bundle against her chest, her body shielding it like a mother guarding her child. "Whatever you're hiding," John muttered, his voice low and unyielding, "it won't stay hidden for long." Her lips parted, breath quick and shallow, but her words came out in fragments. "Please, you don't understand. If you take it, if you even touch it, everything will change." The plea should have softened him, but instead, it hardened something inside. John was a man who had seen lies in all shapes, gamblers swearing they told the truth, drifters claiming innocence while carrying stolen guns, even neighbors pretending to be friends until land disputes turned them into enemies. He'd learned long ago that when someone said "don't look," it was the surest sign there was something worth looking at. He stepped closer, and the young woman stumbled back until her shoulders pressed against the rough wood of the well. Lightning flashed again, cutting her silhouette into the night. Her eyes glistened with fear, but there was also defiance, a quiet strength that didn't belong to someone so frail. "What's your name?" John demanded. She hesitated. For a moment, he thought she might remain silent forever. But then, in a voice fragile as glass, she answered. "Evelyn." "Evelyn," he repeated, letting the name linger on his tongue. "Now tell me, what are you hiding?" Her grip tightened. The bundle shifted slightly, and for an instant he thought he saw something metallic glint beneath the fabric. His hand instinctively slid closer to his revolver, but he didn't draw. "Not yet. It's not what you think," Evelyn whispered. "It's not gold, not stolen. It's something dangerous. For me. For you. For everyone here." Her words weren't the kind a liar used. They carried a weight, a kind of trembling truth. But John's pride wouldn't let him back down. He couldn't allow a stranger to dictate what he could or couldn't see on his own land. "You're trembling," John said, his voice rough. "Whatever's under there, you're too scared to face it alone. That means I need to see it." "No," she cried suddenly, her voice cutting through the roar of the approaching storm. She hugged the cloth bundle tighter, her knuckles whitening. "You must not take it from me. Please. I beg you." For a brief second, John hesitated. The desperation in her voice wasn't staged, it was raw, real. A lesser man might have taken pity on her, walked away, left the mystery buried under her arms. But John wasn't a lesser man. He was stubborn, reckless, and perhaps a little too broken to care about what mercy demanded. "I'll decide what I must do," he said, his tone cold as iron. He reached forward, his fingers brushing the edge of the fabric. Evelyn gasped, stumbling sideways, her body twisting to shield the bundle. The sudden movement knocked over the wooden bucket by the well, sending it crashing against the ground. The sound echoed across the prairie like a gunshot. "Stop!" Evelyn's voice cracked. "You don't know what you're unleashing." John ignored her. His hand shot forward, firm now, seizing the cloth. Evelyn resisted, but her strength was no match for his. The storm winds howled louder, whipping dust into their eyes, as if the earth itself rebelled against what he was about to do. Lightning struck close, so bright it lit the prairie like daylight. In that searing flash, John saw her face, not just frightened, but broken. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered again, softer this time, "Please don't." But John's hand was already pulling. The cloth slipped, unraveling inch by inch. Beneath it, something cold and strange began to gleam, though the storm shadows hid its full shape. John froze, his chest tightening. For the first time, doubt crawled into his heart. What if she was right? What if he had just crossed a line he couldn't step back from? Evelyn's sobs mixed with the rolling thunder. She dropped to her knees, clutching at the last folds of fabric that still covered the secret. "Don't do this," she begged again, her voice breaking. "If you uncover it, you'll never be the same." The words clung to him like a curse. But John's pride, his unshakable will, burned hotter than reason. And with one final pull, the fabric began to slip away. The storm above screamed as if in protest. And in the half-light of a violent prairie night, the rancher realized he had done something that could not be undone. The cloth had torn completely now, revealing its contents in the dim flashes of lightning. John's eyes widened as he glimpsed the metallic object cradled in Evelyn's trembling arms. It was small, but unmistakably intricate. A device of some kind, old yet oddly mechanical, with brass gears and copper tubing glinting beneath the storm's intermittent light. Evelyn sank to her knees, sobs racking her body as she tried to shield the device from him. "You don't understand," she shouted, her voice breaking over the howl of the wind. "If you touch it, if you move it, it could." She stopped herself, fear cutting her words short. John took a cautious step closer, studying the device. He could feel the tension in the air like a living thing, coiling around him and tightening with every second. It was more than a curiosity now. It was a potential threat, something neither of them fully understood. "Potential threat?" John said, voice low, though his heart thumped louder than he wanted to admit. "You've been carrying this all alone? Out here in the middle of nowhere? Why?" Evelyn's hands shook violently as she cradled the device. It's not mine to use. It's not safe for anyone to touch. I was told to protect it, to keep it hidden until the right moment. If someone careless, like you, interferes..." Her voice trembled as she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. John studied her face. Despite her fear, there was a glimmer of something else, determination, courage, maybe even desperation born from responsibility beyond her years. He had seen similar resolve in men and women older and tougher than her, but in someone so young, it was rare. Dangerous, even. "You mean it could hurt me?" he asked cautiously, though part of him doubted the warning. He was a man who had faced wolves, bandits, and firestorms. Could a small mechanical object really frighten him? "Not just you," Evelyn whispered. "It could destroy everything around us. That's why it has to remain hidden." Lightning split the sky again, illuminating her small frame and the strange, brass-glimmering contraption. The wind carried a sharp chill, and the storm seemed to respond to the tension between them, a living, angry thing surrounding the two of them in isolation. John took a deep breath. He had a choice. Leave it be and let the night carry the secret further into isolation, or take control and risk everything. His pride, stubbornness, and that ingrained sense of curiosity gnawed at him relentlessly. "Then I suppose," he said slowly, "I'll have to see if it really is as dangerous as you say." Evelyn froze. Her eyes widened, and she pressed herself to the ground, attempting to cover the object once more. "No! Please! I beg you, don't touch it. You don't know what it can do." The word struck him like a whip. Yet, despite the urgency and fear, he he found himself moving closer, drawn by the irresistible pull of the unknown. His fingers hovered over the glinting metal as thunder rolled overhead. Suddenly, the device gave a tiny, almost imperceptible click. The gears inside whirred faintly, spinning in motion as though aware of their surroundings. Evelyn's eyes widened in terror, and she let out a sharp cry, clutching the mechanism desperately. "Stop! Don't move it!" she screamed. Her voice was raw, broken, and yet full of command. John's hand froze. The sound of the device spinning was enough to make him hesitate. Something about it felt alive, as if it had a will of its own. And in that fleeting moment, he understood. The danger was real. Lightning struck again, closer this time, and the prairie around them became a jagged landscape of shadows and light. The wind howled, carrying with it the sharp scent of ozone and wet earth. John and Evelyn were suspended in a fragile moment, two figures caught between storm and secret, curiosity and caution. "You have to trust me," Evelyn whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar. "If you do anything rash, everything we've tried to protect will be lost." John swallowed hard. His instincts screamed to grab, to control, to master the situation. But the sight of her terrified, determined eyes, the understanding that she had borne this burden alone, made him hesitate longer than he expected. He looked down at the spinning mechanism in her arms. Brass and copper gleamed like lightning trapped in gears. It was beautiful, mysterious, and deadly. And for the first time that night, John realized that some secrets were bigger than any pride, any stubbornness, or any fear he had ever known. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. Only the storm roared around them, indifferent, patient, and relentless. The tension in the air was palpable, each heartbeat measured, each breath a decision. And then, Evelyn spoke again, quieter this time, but with absolute certainty. "You can't touch it. Not yet. You'll ruin everything if you do. Please trust me." John's fingers twitched above the object, and for the first time, the rancher felt a line he wasn't sure he could cross. The night held its breath, waiting for the next move, a single act that could change everything. The storm had reached its peak, rain lashing across the prairie and lightning tearing jagged paths across the darkened sky. Evelyn still clutched the mechanical device to her chest, torn cloth dangling from her arms. Each thunderclap shook the ground beneath them, mirroring the rapid beating of their hearts. John hesitated. His fingers hovered inches from the device, the storm wind whipping his coat around him. For the first time that night, he felt vulnerability creep into his chest. The object was small, deceptively delicate, but the tension it radiated was almost palpable, as if it were aware of its surroundings and their intentions. "You have to let me do this," Evelyn pleaded, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. Her wide eyes locked on his, brimming with desperation and determination. "If I don't control it, everything will fall apart. You don't understand. It's not just dangerous. It's catastrophic." John studied her face, the rain glistening on her hair and cheeks, her small frame trembling against the fury of the storm. He could see the weight she had carried alone, nights of fear, endless vigilance, and an unrelenting sense of responsibility far beyond her years. There was a strength in her, a stubbornness, but also a fragility that made him question every instinct he had about control and force. "I've faced dangers before," John said slowly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Bandits, fire, wolves, but nothing that could look me in the eye and tell me to back off." He gestured toward the spinning device. "And yet here I am, hesitating." Evelyn's breath caught. She lowered the device slightly, showing the intricate gears that clicked and spun with an almost sentient rhythm. "You can't," she whispered. "Even a small misstep, a nudge, a touch, it could activate in ways you can't predict. You'd be destroying more than just me or this device. You'd destroy everything we're trying to protect." John's fingers twitched. The pride and stubbornness that had brought him this far clashed with a growing awareness. He was no longer in control. This tiny device, held in the hands of a terrified girl, had shifted the balance entirely. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating her desperate, determined eyes. The spinning gears caught the brief light, glinting like a warning. John took a cautious step back. The storm's fury seemed to echo his hesitation, the wind moaning as though it too recognized the weight of the moment. "You've carried this alone for too long," John admitted, his voice quieter now, more reflective than commanding. "I've underestimated you, but I also know that if I interfere, I could ruin everything." Evelyn's trembling lessened slightly, though the storm's energy still pushed against her. She looked up at him, searching his face for any trace of intent. "Then you'll have to trust me," she said, voice firm despite the fear. I've protected this longer than anyone knows. I've kept it safe, and I can continue to do so, but only if you let me. John's eyes narrowed, studying her, weighing the choice. Trust was not his nature, especially when stakes were unknown and danger palpable. Yet something about the urgency in her voice, the visible weight she bore, and the unmistakable intelligence in her eyes compelled him to consider it. Fine, he said slowly, stepping back completely. I'll trust you for now. Evelyn exhaled in relief, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. She carefully adjusted the device in her arms, the spinning gears whirring softly but steadily. Thank you, she whispered. You don't know what you've just avoided. The storm continued to rage, yet in that moment, a fragile alliance had formed. The rancher and the girl, once strangers bound by fear and confrontation, now shared a tenuous understanding. The device was still a mystery, the night still dangerous, but there was a thread of trust, fragile, uncertain, but undeniably present. For John, it was a revelation. Control had been his guiding principle, his method of survival. Yet in the presence of Evelyn and her responsibility, he realized that some battles were not meant to be won by force. Some secrets demanded respect, patience, and above all, trust. Lightning struck again, closer than before, illuminating the prairie in stark, blinding flashes. And in those moments of light, John caught a glimpse of Evelyn's resolve, unwavering, courageous, and unyielding. The storm, wild and relentless, seemed almost a reflection of her own spirit. As the rain poured down, soaking them both, John understood that the night had changed them irreversibly. The device, the storm, the torn cloth, all symbols of a truth neither could ignore. And together, for the first time, they would have to navigate what lay ahead. The fragile balance of trust, danger, and the unknown forces now set in motion. The prairie stretched endlessly around them, dark and wet, but within that darkness a shared determination flickered. Small, fragile, but enough to face whatever the night had yet to reveal. The storm had reached its apex, the prairie a blur of wind, rain, and flashes of lightning. The world seemed suspended in chaos, yet within that chaos, a fragile calm had settled between John and Evelyn. The torn cloth, the spinning device, and the perilous night had brought them together in a tense truce that neither fully understood. Evelyn adjusted the device in her arms, ensuring it was stable despite the storm's fury. Her breaths came in sharp, controlled gasps, her knuckles still white from gripping the brass contraption. She looked up at John, her eyes reflecting both fear and trust, two conflicting emotions intertwined with the gravity of their situation. "This is it," she whispered. "The moment everything could change. If it activates now, there's no undoing what comes next. You must stay back." John nodded slowly, his pride battling with reason. He had survived the prairies, bandits, and firestorms, but this small mechanical device cradled by a terrified girl, commanded a caution he could not ignore. He stepped back, boots sinking slightly into the wet earth, his eyes fixed on the glowing brass and copper gears. The device began to hum faintly, a soft vibration that grew steadily louder. The storm seemed to respond to its energy, lightning flashed more frequently, thunder rolling like a drumbeat of impending revelation. Evelyn's hands trembled as she guided the mechanism, whispering to it as if coaxing a wild animal. "Almost there," she muttered. Her voice was a fragile thread amidst the roar of the tempest. "Just a little longer, and it will stabilize." John watched, heart pounding, as the spinning gears and copper tubing aligned in perfect synchrony. The device began to emit a subtle glow, bathing Evelyn's wet, tear-streaked face in warm light. For a moment, the storm seemed to pause, the wind softened, the rain lessened, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Then it happened. The device shifted suddenly, releasing a pulse of energy that spread across the prairie in a soft, shimmering wave. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, and lightning struck in the distance with a violent, almost musical resonance. The storm's fury persisted, but now it carried a sense of wonder alongside the chaos, a reminder that power could be terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Evelyn exhaled, relief washing over her as the device stabilized. She sank to her knees, exhausted, and John moved closer, his initial instinct to command replaced by awe and respect. He knelt beside her, eyes on the intricate machinery that had caused so much fear and tension. "You did it," he said quietly. "You kept it safe. And you saved more than just yourself tonight." Evelyn looked up at him, eyes glimmering with gratitude and cautious hope. "We saved it together," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. Others will come for it, and it's not something anyone should possess lightly." John nodded. The storm raged around them, but the tension between fear and trust had shifted. Something fundamental had changed in the night, in themselves, in the fragile bond forged amidst danger. For the first time, John understood that control was not always about dominance. Sometimes it was about patience, respect, and choosing to trust the right person at the right time. Evelyn had taught him that lesson in the span of a single storm, a single night, and a single act of courage. As dawn crept over the horizon, lightning fading into the soft, pink light of morning, John and Evelyn stood together, drenched and exhausted, yet alive. The prairie stretched endlessly before them, dark but awakening to a new day. The torn cloth lay forgotten on the ground, the mechanical device humming quietly in Evelyn's hands, stable at last. They shared a glance, an unspoken understanding, a promise of vigilance, and a recognition that the night had irrevocably changed them both. They had faced fear, temptation, and uncertainty, and emerged not unscathed, but wiser, bonded by an experience that would define them forever. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and lightning, a reminder that the storm, though passing, had left its mark. And as they turned toward the ranch, John and Evelyn moved as allies, wary yet united, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring, together. The night had ended, but its lessons, its trials, and its revelations would linger in their hearts forever.